Everyone's looking at you.
Right.
You open your notes, you say, what exactly?
That is the ultimate question.
It really is. I mean, your heart rate spikes.
Yeah.
Your mind goes completely blank. And a room full of native English speakers is just staring directly at you, waiting for you to start the meeting.
Yeah, it's a profoundly high-stakes moment.
If you have ever felt that specific stomach-dropping panic, this deep dive is for you. Because, well, the pressure of wrangling different personalities is hard enough on its own.
Oh, absolutely.
But trying to do it while actively translating professional nuance into a second language, the cognitive load is just immense.
It really is. What we're looking at in today's source material is this reality that linguistic anxiety can completely override your leadership ability.
Right.
Like if you're dedicating half of your brain's processing power to just finding the right vocabulary word, you can't actively listen to your colleagues. You can't steer a complex project.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because today, we are exploring a literal, word-for-word playbook for running a meeting successfully.
A full playbook, not just quick tips.
Exactly. The mission here isn't just to help you survive your next calendar invite. It's to give you, like, the exact structural formulas to project absolute confidence.
So you can completely remove the linguistic guesswork, right? And focus on the actual work.
Yes, and to achieve that confidence, there's a fundamental psychological shift that has to happen in how you view your position in that room.
Right. We need to define what it actually means to be a facilitator.
Because I think a lot of working professionals, they freeze up because they think running a meeting means they have to act like the boss.
Yes. Or they think they have to be the ultimate authority on the subject matter. But a facilitator is simply the person who owns and manages the meeting's process.
You are the structural engineer of the conversation.
I love that. You own the process, not necessarily the people.
So I want you, the listener, to keep your own upcoming meetings in mind as we break down the exact English phrases you need for every single stage of the meeting lifecycle.
And, well, the first stage, naturally, is the opening.
Right. And my instinct, especially when dealing with senior colleagues, is usually to wait for latecomers so I don't seem rude.
Yeah, totally natural.
I'll usually ask something like, should we give everyone a few more minutes?
Which is exactly how you accidentally create a power vacuum.
Wait, really? Just by asking?
Yes. The moment you ask the room for permission to start, you have handed over your control of the process.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Setting the tone in the first 2 minutes, it dictates the behavioral dynamics of the entire session. If you are hesitant, the room will sense it and they will take over.
So what's the alternative? How do I start without sounding like a dictator?
The playbook gives us very specific authoritative phrasing to bypass this. You basically assume the authority of the clock.
Yeah.
You say, let's go ahead and get started. I know a few people are still joining, but we'll fill them in.
Let's go ahead and get started. You are acknowledging the reality, but you're protecting the time of the people who actually showed up. But what if someone critical is missing? Like a key stakeholder.
You handle it with administrative efficiency. You say, we're missing a few folks today. Let's make sure someone sends them a summary.
Or maybe, Sarah can't make it today. We'll loop her in afterward.
Perfect. We'll loop her in. You've recognized the absence without letting it kill the momentum.
But getting people's attention is really only half the battle. Stating the purpose of the meeting seems to be where a lot of professionals stumble.
Oh, they just read the title of the calendar invite out loud and expect everyone to be on the same page.
Which is wild.
It is. That's the single fastest way to guarantee a disorganized meeting. You must state the specific outcome immediately.
So instead of just saying, the purpose of today's meeting is to talk about the Q3 budget.
Right. You take it a step further to truly lock in the room's focus. You define the deliverable.
By the end of this session, I want us to walk out with a finalized vendor list.
Exactly.
It makes me think of a pilot's pre-flight announcement.
Oh, I like this.
Right. Imagine getting on a plane, the doors close, the plane takes off, and the pilot just comes on the intercom and says, welcome aboard. We're going to fly around for a while and see how we feel.
I would immediately panic.
Right. If the passengers don't know the final destination, they're going to be incredibly anxious the entire flight. They'll question every single turn the plane makes.
Yeah, because they don't know where they're going.
But if the pilot says, we're heading to Chicago, we'll be there in 2 hours, everybody relaxes. When you say, I want us to walk out with a finalized vendor list, You are telling the passengers exactly where the plane is landing.
That is the perfect way to frame it. You're providing psychological comfort. When people know the boundaries of the discussion, their anxiety drops.
But, stating the destination only works if people actually stay focused on it.
And they rarely do.
Right. The moment you introduce complex topics,
Yeah.
human nature kicks in and, well, people want to explore every single detail.
Which brings us to managing the agenda, and specifically the tangents.
Tangents are the absolute killer of productivity.
Hmm.
It's like opening too many tabs on an internet browser.
Yes.
Suddenly, the collective RAM of the room is completely maxed out and everything just crashes. So how do we close those tabs politely?
You have to master the art of the transition. When an item is done, you enforce a clean break. We've covered the timeline. Next up is the budget.
Simple, clear.
But when an item is dragging on and it's draining that collective RAM, you need a really firm linguistic boundary. The playbook suggests saying, we're running a little long on this. Can we pick this up offline?
Offline, meaning outside of this specific meeting, right? Like in a direct message or a separate email thread.
Exactly.
But what if someone brings up a tangent that is actually a genuinely brilliant idea? It's just not relevant to the current agenda.
So this is where you use a specific concept called the parking lot. And since this might be a new term for some listeners, let's define it clearly.
Yeah, please do.
In meeting facilitation, a parking lot is a visible list. Maybe it's on a whiteboard or in the shared digital notes on your screen where off-topic but highly valid points are saved for later.
I have to push back on this a little bit, though.
Okay, why?
If I bring up a concept that I've been working really hard on and you immediately tell me you're putting it in a parking lot, I'm going to feel dismissed.
You feel brushed off?
Yeah, it sounds like a polite corporate way of throwing my idea in the trash.
And if it's delivered poorly, it absolutely is dismissive. The mechanics of the phrase are what save it.
How so?
If you say, that's off topic, let's park it, you trigger a defensive response. The playbook requires collaborative phrasing. You say, that's a good point, and I want to make sure we capture it. Can we park that in the notes and come back to it? I don't want to lose it.
Oh, I don't want to lose it. That changes the entire subtext.
It does, because it leverages a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect.
Right, which basically dictates that human beings fixate on uncompleted tasks. When a participant brings up an idea, their brain will not let it go until they feel it has been addressed.
So by saying I don't want to lose it, and literally writing it down in the parking lot where they can see it.
You provide cognitive closure, the person feels validated, their brain releases the fixation, and you have successfully protected your agenda.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Managing participation. Because managing the topics inevitably means managing the people.
Right, the people are the ones creating the tangents.
Exactly. And you always have an imbalance in a corporate setting. You have the quiet participants who never speak, and then you have the dominant speakers who they inhale all the oxygen in the room.
The human element is the ultimate test of a facilitator. So let's look at the quiet participants first.
Okay.
In an international setting, they might just be taking a moment to translate their thoughts, or they might simply be introverted.
My instinct to include them usually backfires, to be honest.
What do you usually say?
I'll throw out a really broad question like, does anyone else have anything to add? And it's just met with dead silence.
Yeah, because a broad question requires a massive amount of confidence to answer. You're asking them to step onto a very large stage with absolutely no prompt.
So how do I bring them in?
You lower the barrier to entry by targeting them with specific curiosity.
Okay, give me an example.
David, we haven't heard from you yet. What's your take? Or, better yet, you lean on their specific expertise so they feel really secure. Sarah, you have a lot of experience with this European market. Does that match what you've seen?
Oh, that's good. You're giving them a very specific safe lane to merge into the conversation.
Exactly.
But what about the opposite scenario? What about the person who has been talking for 5 uninterrupted minutes?
You deploy the diplomatic interrupt. You must physically redistribute the speaking time. But you validate them as you do it to prevent bruising their ego.
Right. You can't just yell, stop talking.
Right. You say, thanks, Mark. Let's hear from a few others before we respond. Or, let me just pause this here and open it up. Jane, what do you think?
This actually brings up a huge question, though. What if you're not the most senior person in the room?
Ah, yes. The hierarchy problem.
Because if a vice president is the one rambling for 5 minutes, I can't exactly just tell them to wrap it up, right?
It's definitely intimidating, but there is a highly strategic maneuver for this called blaming the clock.
Blaming the clock.
Yes. When you are correcting the behavior of someone who outranks you, a direct confrontation is dangerous. So by blaming the schedule, you externalize the authority.
So I'm not the one telling the VP to stop talking.
Right. The inflexible boundaries of space and time are telling the VP to stop talking. You are simply the neutral guardian of the process that everyone already agreed to.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You completely remove the personal ego from the correction.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we need to hear all of this in action. Let's actually run a scene, a sample dialogue.
Oh, I love this. Let's do it.
I'll run a quick 10-minute sprint meeting, and you play the team. Specifically, you can play a dominant VP who wants to derail things.
Oh, I will gladly play the rambling VP.
Okay, let's set the scene. We're launching a new software update in Q3. I'm the facilitator. Everyone's on the video call. Ready?
Ready.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. I know a few people are still joining, but we'll fill them in. The purpose of today's meeting is to check the status of the Q3 software launch. By the end of this session, I want us to walk out with a finalized testing schedule.
Wait, really quick, before we talk about testing, the vendor payment system has been a complete nightmare this week. I spent 3 hours yesterday just trying to approve a single invoice. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the vendor system's really tricky. Have you tried reaching out to IT about the... Wait, no, I'm doing it wrong. I just took the bait.
You did. You validated the tangent and asked a follow-up question.
Okay, let me course correct. Let me try again.
Take it from the interruption. It's ridiculous.
I know this vendor issue is critical, but looking at our time, I want to make sure we respect the agenda we set. Can we park this vendor issue in the notes for a dedicated follow-up? I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, fine, as long as it gets fixed.
Perfect. Thanks. So back to the timeline. We've covered the back-end updates. Next up is the testing phase. Sarah, we haven't heard from you yet, and you own the QA process. What's your take on starting tests next Tuesday?
As Sarah rep me, Tuesday works for me.
Great. So before we wrap, let me quickly summarize what we decided. We are parking the vendor payment issue. We are aligned on starting QA testing next Tuesday. David, you'll send out the final testing schedule by end of day tomorrow.
As David said, yep, I'll send it tomorrow.
Good work today. This is a really productive session. I'll send the summary out shortly.
And scene. That was excellent. You hit the opening, the parking lot, the diplomatic interrupt, and the action items.
It felt surprisingly natural once I had the phrases ready to go.
It does.
Now, in that role play, I used the word aligned, which brings us to facilitating decisions. Because eventually, all of this careful navigation has to lead to an actual result.
Yes, and forcing a group of people to commit to an action is deeply uncomfortable.
It is. The instinct is usually just to ask, do we all agree?
Which is a trap, because that implies a need for unanimous enthusiasm, which almost never happens in business. The vocabulary word you need to adopt is alignment.
Let's define that clearly. Alignment isn't necessarily agreement.
Exactly. Alignment means I might not love this option, but I will support it and I will not sabotage it.
Oh, okay.
So you ask, are we aligned on this option? Or if the room is just spinning in circles and you need to force the issue, you state, I'm going to put a stake in the ground. My recommendation is to go with vendor A. Does anyone have a strong objection?
Put a stake in the ground. I really like the visual of that. You're planting a flag and challenging the room to knock it down. But, well, what if you aren't ready to force an ultimatum? If I'm just trying to gauge the room's feelings, asking for objections usually just results in a lot of hedging and like 30 more minutes of debate.
Right.
What is the actual mechanic to force an answer without being aggressive?
You use a temperature check.
Okay, define temperature check for us.
It is a quick, informal poll that completely bypasses the debate phase. You tell the room, let's take a quick temperature check. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs sideways on this approach.
Okay, thumbs up is yes. Thumbs down is no. What exactly is the function of thumbs sideways in a professional setting?
Neurologically, it is a brilliant pressure release valve.
Really?
Yeah. When you force people into a strict yes or no binary choice, their amygdala, the threat center of the brain, it flares up. A hard no feels very confrontational, and a hard yes feels like a dangerous commitment.
That makes total sense.
So thumbs sideways means I have reservations, but I can live with it. It allows participants to express mild hesitation without entirely blocking your process.
But what happens when that temperature check reveals a hard gridlock? Like you've got thumbs up, thumbs down, and suddenly people are just digging their heels in.
This is where we handle conflict. If there is no consensus, you clearly dictate the next steps so the meeting doesn't feel like a total failure.
Right.
You say, we don't have full alignment today. Let's identify the top 2 options and come back with the data next week.
You break the gridlock by forcing a micro-decision. We can't agree on the whole plan, but we can agree to launch phase 1, and we will flag the budget issue for follow-up.
Precisely. You maintain forward momentum. But of course, sometimes that friction isn't just about data or budgets.
Sometimes the friction is ego.
And it gets personal.
Oh, putting out fires. This is the nightmare scenario for any facilitator, let alone someone doing it in a second language.
Right.
Voices start rising, colleagues are talking over each other. The tension is just palpable.
Your immediate job here is de-escalation. And you do this by literally narrating the tension to diffuse it.
What do you mean?
You step in and say, let's take the temperature down a bit. I think we're all on the same team here. You remind them of the shared context to break the tunnel vision of the argument.
But you can't just tell people to calm down, right?
Yeah.
That usually has the exact opposite effect.
Oh, never tell someone to calm down. You have to address the root of the issue so they feel heard. You utilize objective labeling.
Give me the phrase.
I hear 2 different perspectives here. Let's make sure we understand both before we move on.
I hear 2 different perspectives.
Exactly. In psychology, there's a concept called the fundamental attribution error. When people argue, they assume the other person is fighting them because of a character flaw, like they're just being stubborn or foolish.
Right.
Your job as a facilitator is to show them they actually share the same goal, they just have different methodologies.
It's essentially couples therapy for the boardroom.
It really is.
Like, in couples therapy, it's like a family fiercely arguing about a vacation. And the therapist steps in and says, look, it sounds like you both desperately want to end up at the beach. You are just disagreeing on whether to fly or drive. Is that right?
That is exactly how it works in a corporate setting. You separate the shared goal from the disputed method. You say, it sounds like you both want to increase overall sales by 10%. You're just disagreeing on the marketing spend.
And the moment you frame it that way, the hostility evaporates.
Because they realize they aren't enemies. They're 2 people trying to solve the exact same puzzle from different angles.
Okay, so the conflict is resolved, the agenda is complete, and we have 2 minutes left on the clock. We are about to land the plane.
Yes.
How do we close the meeting effectively so that all of this careful facilitation wasn't a total waste of time?
You have to stick the landing. And the biggest mistake professionals make is simply watching the clock hit 0 and saying, okay, we're out of time. Thanks, everyone.
Guilty. I do that all the time.
It's so common, but you must summarize decisions immediately to cement them in the group's memory. Before we wrap, let me quickly summarize what we decided.
And then the critical final step. Assigning what happens next. But the playbook specifically uses the term action item rather than just a task.
Let's define this clearly, too.
Why does that distinction matter?
Because of the diffusion of responsibility, also known as the bystander effect.
Right.
If you end a meeting by saying to the room, hey, we need to look into the new software, everyone will just assume someone else is going to do it.
And absolutely nothing will happen.
Nothing. An action item is a specific task assigned to a specific person with a specific deadline.
So instead of throwing a task into the void, you use a formula. Name, action, date.
Yes.
David, you'll take the software research by Thursday.
Exactly. Or I'll handle the budget email. Sarah, can you own the client presentation draft by end of day?
And once those are locked in, you end on a definitive, positive note.
Good work today. This was a productive session. I'll send the summary out shortly.
So what does this all mean for us? When you look at this word-for-word playbook, starting assertively, utilizing the parking lot for cognitive closure, bypassing the amygdala with temperature checks, and assigning precise action items, it does something profound.
It really does.
It entirely removes the linguistic anxiety of running a meeting in English. You don't have to invent the wheel every single time you open your mouth. You just deploy the structural tools. And when you aren't agonizing over your vocabulary, you actually have the mental bandwidth to lead.
Absolutely.
So think about your own upcoming meetings this week. What is the hardest part of this process for you? Is it staying on track when people go off on tangents? Is it managing conflict when tensions rise? Or is it forcing a room full of hesitant people to make decisions? Tell us in the comments. We really want to know what your biggest hurdle is. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode.
This raises an important question for us to leave on, though. We've been analyzing this playbook as a survival guide for leading meetings in English as a second language. But think about the behavioral psychology behind these exact phrases. The clear boundaries, the active listening, the structured empathy of the parking lot, the de-escalation of conflict. If mastering these highly structured, formulaic English phrases makes you so incredibly effective at managing human behavior and time, might applying these exact same rigid boundaries actually make you a significantly better leader in your native language, too? Does relying on a strict linguistic playbook actually unlock better, more empathetic communication overall?
That is something to carefully consider the next time you sit at the head of the table. Until next time.